इंडियन हिंदुस्तान के ऑडियंस का एक शायद ये नहीं भी होगा, लेकिन ये बात उन पर फोर्स की गई है कि देखिए जी, इसमें तो है, इसमें तो आधे नंगे शरीर हैं औरतों की, तो आप फिल्म देखने के लिए आइए। ये एक ऐसी एटीट्यूड बन गई है जो बहुत गलत है।
There are many things that I consider to be a natural progression in life. When you go from an infant to learning how to walk and talk, the journey from school to college, the self-reflection that kicks in puberty, and the sense of dread that prevails as an adult. But one thing that remains consistent as an observer of Hindi cinema and the journey of female actors specifically in the industry is what allows them for a natural progression from their struggling days or the indie space to becoming commercial bona fide faces producers line up for, and that is the compulsion to cater to the male gaze. I have realized that it is very rare for female actors to have a balance between creatively stimulating work and commercial films that attract massive box office numbers, because most often than not, they are mutually exclusive. It's tough to find creative work of substance that grows your fan base in this country, because commercial movies most often categorize women into two categories: the space of either being compelled to work with stars significantly older than them or play flower pot roles where they cater to the majority male ticket purchasing audience by being scantily clad or being a part of dance numbers or sequences where they can be ogled at, where their beauty takes precedence over the character, and these roles are replaceable and highly dependent if you are, not to use a derogatory terminology for humans, but the flavor of the season. You just see the progression of the Maddock horror comedy universe and see how it has transitioned from having specific social and environmental themes from the first three and even partly Bhedia to essentially becoming cheap marketing gimmicks in order to push ticket sales with inconsequential item songs. This is contrary to what Dinesh Vijan believed when he was questioned about the inclusion of item songs in movies in 2019 post 3.
The scripts are instinct and my own moral compass what allows me to make, and fortunately all the films that I've made till now, there's never been an issue like that. But this is...
But you got flack for the item number in 3.
It says a lot when a big action movie like War 2 drops its trailer and everyone is presumably excited about the high-octane action set pieces and the intense face-off that will happen between two big stars. But the biggest takeaway from the movie's trailer and what was being discussed the most on social media was Kiara Advani's bikini look, which for those who have seen the movie will attest to the fact had no business being in the movie. Through this video with specific examples, because I just don't want to yap but give you data, have to tell you that female actors in the industry find themselves stuck in 5 phases in their career: the commercial cave-in and being stuck in mediocrity, the paycheck may be good, the rare attempted balance being embraced by the masses, too early to tell, those who did not cave in and are suffering in the process, and the privilege of choice for a select few. So let's first discuss the category of actors we expanded on who seem to be in a rut of sorts regarding the choices they are making. But these choices may have also led them to make them monetary gains they always dreamt of. So can we really blame them? Let's of course start with the obvious choice. The most discussed actor on this channel what seems to be in the past year, Tripti Dimri. And sometimes I wonder about the fact that can you really blame her, for this actress poured her heart out and soul to the projects like Bulbul, Kala and Laila Majnu that developed a niche fan base for sure but did not lead to greater commercial opportunities. And in came a divisive but blockbuster film like Animal and the offers just poured in for her. Sadly, these were also followed by mediocre projects like Bad News, Vicky Vidya Ka Wo Wala Video and Bhool Bhulaiya 3. But I think Tripti is too talented to pass on creatively stimulating work. Doing a Dhadak 2 and a project now that is upcoming with Vishal Bhardwaj in the future, proving to the naysayers, hopefully, that she is here for the long run. I don't know about the extent of her role in Spirit, but I'm sure a Prabhas and Sandeep Reddy Vanga project is only going to do what Animal did for her in 2023. Rakul Preet Singh. This is an actor who has intrigued me, for I have never really understood her popularity or why she has been in the reckoning for leading roles in movies. This is not to specifically diss on her, but I cannot really point out a movie and a performance that has really stuck with me. Having done her fair share of Tamil and Telugu work, doing huge movies with the likes of Ravi Teja and Allu Arjun, Rakul's Bollywood career has been mostly mediocre, starring mostly opposite the likes of Arjun Kapoor and Ajay Devgan, with her most significantly impactful impactful role coming from her work in De De Pyaar De. While I appreciate the movie and this franchise addressing the age gap as a conscious choice because it's like calling out the obvious, but I'm still baffled by how the makers use the bodies of these female leads as a marketing tool to still sell a movie. Something that is so tackily obvious in the recent song they dropped titled Jhoom Sharabi. I can still understand this frame and costume styling for a comedy like Masti 4, but I am baffled about its integration in a film like this. Kiara Advani. This is an actor I associate with having the talent to back every role she features in. I absolutely fell in love with her ability as an actor to extract such emotionally riveting performances in projects like Shersha, Satya Prem Ki Katha, and even a divisive film like Jug Jug Jio. However, when Kiara did her big transition to high-budget commercial films with huge stars, it turned out to be one massive dud after the other in the form of Game Changer and War 2. Both movies where her roles and their significance was mostly to play second fiddle to the leads. This is contrary to the acting chops that were in full display in the otherwise understated film she was featuring in prior to said transition, where her body was not the primary goal to be marketed, and now Kiara is largely dependent on Toxic to work, which, let's be honest, is a full-blown Yash project. Tamanna Bhatia. Whenever I speak about Tamanna Bhatia as an artist, people scoff at the very thought because most recently, people only associate the actress with dancing on item songs in commercial movies. Contrary to popular belief, Tamanna, especially in Tamil cinema, has featured in movies where she has shown great range as an actor, but those of course were not paying the big hefty bills. What has happened since Tamanna has taken the throne of being the it girl from Nora Fatehi is that she has been raking in checks that one can only dream of. While her acting pursuits in the form of movies like F3, Sikandar Ka Muqaddar and Aranmanai 4 have been lackluster at best, sometimes unintentionally funny too, artistically, it's the item songs that have really created the national appeal for the star recently, reportedly being paid a crazy fees of 5 to 6 crores for dancing on Gafoor in Bads of Bollywood. More power to Tamanna for making that kind of bank, but if I were to be totally honest, I somewhat miss the fact that an artist got lost in the process. So is the transition, I guess, that you can't really blame people for. I think in my brief interaction with Tamanna during the roundtable Netflix discussion, she seemed clear about the segregation in her mind to what she signs as an artist and what she says yes to as a commercial dealing, much like Sydney Sweeney in the West. If me catering to the male gaze is giving me checks I can secure a future with, then I'll double down and ride the wave as long as I can. Alaya F. This is an actress that showed great artistic promise with her first film Jawani Janeman in 2020, where she starred opposite Saif Ali Khan and Tabu. As actors of substance want to take up things that are challenging, Alaya during the pandemic and post featured in interesting projects that can be best termed as left of mainstream, which included the likes of Freddy, Almost Pyaar with DJ Mohabbat, and the Hindi remake of U-Turn. However, all these titles were not giving her the commercial push she envisioned. She of course signed the project that on paper would seem like a blockbuster, but it turned out to be her most embarrassing role in her filmography, and that was Bade Miyan Chote Miyan. A sleeper hit in the form of Srikanth Post, where she was brilliant, does portray a silver lining, I guess, and a bright future, but the commercial gatekeepers only remember the last big bomb. I hope the ordeal of Bade Miyan Chote Miyan and its dismal reception does not really have a trickle effect in her career. Kriti Kharbanda. Another actress who has done her fair share of Kannada and Telugu cinema is Kriti Kharbanda. These roles were mostly associated with flower pot roles opposite stars. Her Hindi film stints generally showed great promise initially, especially if you were to notice movies like Shaadi Mein Zarur Aana and Karwan. However, it was the commercial transition into mindless films where the women had to do nothing but look pretty where I believe her career trajectory really suffered, especially movies like Houseful 4 and Pagalpanti. While Houseful was a commercial hit, I think history of Hindi cinema has proven that with this franchise, it does nothing for female actors who are replaceable and are always used as eye candy and mere objects of desire. Pooja Hegde. This is an actress who I believe is the golden child among big producers across industries. Pooja is always in the reckoning for huge commercial projects among big stars in Tamil, Telugu and even Hindi cinema. However, the creative depth in her characters is consistently missing in these ventures. The last few years in the big commercial projects has made her get the tag of being the unlucky element of these projects. Typical dismissive sexist claims by people in order to shift the blame of their own incompetence as storytellers. Projects like Radhe Shyam, Beast, Circus, Kisi Ka Bhai Kisi Ki Jaan have been nothing short of terrible. However, contrary to popular opinion, I absolutely loved her in Retro opposite Surya, a divisive film, but Pooja showed great emotional depth and maturity in her role as Rukmani. The problem is that when I see her upcoming ventures, it seems to be an extension of a lot of commercial slop, except the Dulquer Salman project probably, that leaves little to no impact in changing her perception as an actor. Deepika Padukone. I really respect Deepika for the empire that she has built for herself and how she has progressed her career. Whoever has seen her film since her debut will notice that there was a seismic shift in her trajectory post-Cocktail, where people started noticing the capability of the individual beyond her beauty. And this is where Deepika really excelled, both creatively, and the same projects gained commercial acclaim too, with especially titles such as Piku, Bajirao Mastani and Padmavat. Deepika was on a dream film run. Even backing projects like Chapak as a producer made one assume that she is going to transition to backstories that mean something, that have something to say. However, in the last few years, what also seems to be the case with Deepika Padukone's creative choices is that she is comfortable in being in the full-blown masala movies where her roles are limited in running time and offer little in terms of challenges as an actor. Pathaan, Jawan, Fighter and Kalki. But now with the fiasco of her exits happening from projects, I wonder whether we will ever see the creative depth of Deepika where she backed projects as a star of substance ever again. Tara Sutaria. This is an actor whose trajectory somewhat breaks my heart, for I have beautiful memories of seeing her on Best of Luck Nikki, and I wondered when she was featuring in her debut with Student of the Year 2 that she will fare better than her contemporaries. However, Tara's career is somewhat of a fever dream, almost feeling like she is compelled into believing that a certain form of commercial cinema works, but these are intrinsically and artistically separated for what she believes in, having her roots in musical theatre, far removed from content like Marjava, Heropanti 2 and Ek Villain Returns, genuinely showing some promise in her digital release Apurva, but it not being a contributing factor to reaching higher ground, only having Toxic in her kitty, which much like with the predicament of Kiara Advani, is a full-blown Yash movie. Mrunal Thakur. Much like Tripti Dimri, I often get concerned about the future creatively for a talented actor like Mrunal Thakur. How is it that an actor who features in a commercial hit like Super 30 and competent and powerful films like Love Sonia in her Hindi film debut gets stuck in a rut of mediocrity like Gumrah and Son of Sardar 2? How is it that Telugu cinema provides her gems in the form of Hi Nana and Sita Ramam, but Hindi film producers only provide her eye candy slop? This has often led to Mrunal expressing her frustration in interviews, talking about how she is tired of consistently proving her worth as an actor to the gatekeepers of the Hindi film industry.
I don't know, yaar. I'm just really tired of proving my filmmakers now.
Yeah.
Sonam Bajwa. This is an actor who is a bona fide star if you were to consider her popularity with Punjabi cinema. Yes, she is not raved about for her acting range, but it would be no debate that Sonam Bajwa is a household name. However, her Hindi film projects have been nothing short of lackluster. Houseful 5, Baagi 4 and Ek Deewane Ki Deewaniyat can be best described as cringe ventures. Though I must say Sonam may have had the funniest gag from Houseful 5 where she transitions to swear and be angry in Punjabi. It's however clear with the role she has portrayed, the producers aim to focus on her popularity and glamorous side than even consider her acting ability. Bhumi Pednekar. This is an actor who with Taapsee Pannu was considered to be the golden child of the marriage between content and commerce. Bhumi would have a dream debut with Dam Laka Ke Haisha, informed, nuanced and creative pursuits with Shubh Mangal Saabdhan, Son Chidiya and Badhai Do would follow. But post the pandemic, I have somewhat got whiplash from Bhumi's creative choices. This pursuit of commercial cinema and playing the quintessential hot lead is something I believe everyone would love to do, but this has in the process also led to Bhumi do a lot of tone-deaf roles like Thank You For Coming and Mere Husband Ki Biwi and the awful Netflix series The Royals. It's when you see ventures like Bhakshak where you remember that this is the girl and artist you truly fell in love with. But I think it's clear that the less creatively stimulating work that is being called out, criticized and that caters to the male gaze is actually paying the bills. Disha Patni. I consider this actress actually to be a credible actor who, much like Tamanna Bhatia, has found herself in a trap that she doesn't mind exploiting till the hype remains. This is the male followers on her social media that, much like Sydney Sweeney, allow her to have opportunities to collaborate with brands like Calvin Klein, but this comes at the cost of creatively stimulating work because it creates a perception of you just being a pretty and beautiful element of movies. This is the same girl who was brilliant in projects like MS Dhoni and Malang, but has since the pandemic been associated with either inconsequential or just eye candy roles. Disha is not only a respectable talent in my opinion, but one of the few female actors who have a physical prowess like no one else. Terribly underutilized as an actor in the process of succumbing to the commercial diktats, which I honestly can't blame her for. Again, because the paycheck must be sweet. This brings me to the category of actors who are just too talented to be stuck in the rut of mediocrity and commercial slop. These people genuinely strive for creative work and hope for there to be some balance between commercial cinema and creatively stimulating work. You see Sania Malhotra and you almost pity her to play second fiddle to Janhvi and Sunny Sanskari in a role so bland and so forgettable that you feel like exclaiming ki Sania underrated hi sahi thi. Then you see Yami, who for more than a decade has worked tooth and nail to make a name for herself in the commercial space, but she has dealt with complete apathy from the industry. You would assume that with successful ventures like Bala and Kabil, the industry would notice that this girl is here to stay and be a bona fide lead for the future. But credible offers with big production companies have not poured in for the actor, mostly featuring in digital releases, mid-budget films, or her own husband's production ventures. This, I think, is a huge tragedy for an actor who deserves so much more, who, by the way, opposite Imran Hashmi, looks in such fine form in the trailer of her upcoming movie Haq, and more power to her to keep on persevering. In my brief interaction with a young actor like Bhamika Gabbi, I was elated to know that she wants to work in literally every industry that offers her work, and this does not restrict her creatively and will only lead to greater opportunities. While her stint in Hindi cinema has been rather mediocre, looking at her lineup that includes Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam and Punjabi films, I think this is the only way one can strive towards greatness in the initial years of your career. The three actresses who are the most in demand in my opinion, especially from the Hindi film producers, are the likes of Kriti Sanon, Alia Bhatt and Rashmika Mandanna. And these three actresses have a diverse filmography both in the initial phases of their career and even today, still striving for roles that have some depth, especially if you were to consider Kriti and Alia. What I find very interesting is that Rashmika gets called out for her silly roles in movies like Pushpa and Sikandar, and her incompetence often gets called out in ventures like Thamma and Chhava, where she is, well, let's be honest, cast for her popularity versus being fit for the role, but I have to say, she doesn't get enough credit for what she attempts, especially in the Telugu space. She doesn't get praised for her role in Dear Comrade, in which I believe she was spectacular. Contrary to popular belief, I think she was brilliant in Animal 2, competent in Kubera opposite Dhanush, and is still attempting interesting stuff with titles like The Girlfriend and Maisa, movies solely mounted on her name. I think she often gets called out unfairly because it's not as if she's only doing flower pot commercial roles. She is actively seeking for credible work with characters of depth too. There is one thing, however, that will always rub me the wrong way. I still cannot comprehend why Rashmika was styled in Thamma with this small blouse as the representative of Betals. Why was she only dressed that way compared to her entire tribe? Still blows my mind. I think, of course, there are several actors who show great promise, and it is way too early to tell whether they will be corrupted by the industry in the process, having to do the skin show that almost seems like the bare minimum actresses have to do while transitioning towards commercial cinema. This includes the likes of nepo babies like Shania Kapoor, Khushi Kapoor, Pashmina Roshan and Sohana Khan, talented actresses like Sharbari Wagh, and those who have shown great promise in their debuts, which includes the likes of Aneet Padda, Pratibha Ranta and Nitanshi Goel. The category of actors, however, who I empathize with the most are the people who clearly did not succumb to the requirements of commercial cinema, who did not want to partake in silly, inconsequential and frivolous roles, and this in turn led to them losing out on opportunities that would have helped achieve them some commercial credibility. This includes the likes of Amrita Rao, an actress dearly loved in the 2000s who seemed to just fizzle out as the years pass by. A talent like Sayami Kher, who has proven her worth in performances in movies like Choked, 8am Metro and Ghumar, and is almost sidelined completely and categorized in the indie space. Shalini Pandey, while causing waves in Arjun Reddy, was brilliant in her Hindi film ventures like Jayesh Bhai Jordar and Maharaj, but there is a commercial ascendancy that just seems to be missing. This is true for artists that I personally love, whose career and work maybe you won't be even familiar with. This includes Kubra Seth, who is brilliant in Sacred Games, Jawani Janeman, Asadya Khatib, who is absolutely a show stealer in The Diplomat this year. Shreya Dhanvantari, who was ruling the digital space at one point of time with The Family Man and Scam 1992. Medha Shankar with 12th Fail, a wild card and such a firecracker in the form of Chum Darung, who was brilliant in Khauf and Badhai Do, but even more so. Monica Panwar, who was an absolute revelation in Jamtada, brilliant in Nishanchi this year, and the highlight of the show Khauf. Where is the ascendancy for these gems? It's few and far between, and most of the time, let's be honest, non-existent. The privilege of choice, however, only stands with the Nepo holy trinity of Bollywood, and that is Janhvi, Ananya and Sara. And while of the three, Ananya is playing her cards creatively almost perfectly, playing to her strengths while portraying urban roles that best suit her character and demeanor. The luxury of choice is only restricted to these queens, and there will come a day where enough chances would lead for all of us to believe that they aren't that bad too. They'll take the shape of a relative who's been around you far too long. For you, forgive their odd eccentricities too. You'll start to excuse their bad behavior and exclaim, well, at least they're sweet. And that's the new bar that will be normalized and we will get accustomed to, because rather than fighting the battle with arguments on the dining table and creating a scene and calling them out for how they are just ruining the vibes, you'll just succumb to the fact that, come what may, they will be a regular feature of your family gatherings every year.